Ah, the exclamation mark. It is without a doubt one of the most used punctuation points in the world. It's used in warning signs, it's used in extremely happy advertising, and it's even used in a couple of town names. This exclamation point has definitely left a mark on its own in our culture. But where does this symbol come from? Why do we use it the way we do today? And most importantly, is it an exclamation mark or an exclamation point? Well, technically both are correct and are used almost equally among English speakers, though some prefer one over the other. One thing's for sure though, the exclamation point is certainly more popular than its brother, the question point. Anyway, I'm sure you've received a text before from a really excited friend. To show their excitement, your friend probably used an unnecessarily large amount of exclamation marks. Our society is obsessed with these things. We use them to indicate excitement, emotion, warning, and urgency. But before we had the luxury of using excess punctuation, there was a time when people were trying to figure out how to put their emotions down on paper, or stone, whatever they used. For example, as it turns out, the ancient Romans and Greeks did not have a way of writing down this exclamatory type of punctuation. But what they did have were words that they would use to express joy and triumph. In both cases, this word was yo, spelled like this in ancient Greek, meaning oh, or an exclamation of joy. One theory goes that yo was most likely written like this, with the I over the O, and because it was used to express joy, the exclamation point as we know it was born. But it certainly took its time to catch on. In Lynn Truss's book, Eats, Shoots, and Leaves, she explains that the exclamation mark as we know it today was most likely introduced in the 15th century by printers. At the time, it was known as the note of admiration, which frankly sounds way too polite for our 21st century. She writes that the term probably remained until the 17th century and was defined in a 1680 book called, and I'm not kidding, this is the name of the book, Treatise of Stops, Points, or Pauses, and of Notes which are used in writing and print, both very necessary to be well known, and the use of each to be carefully taught. In full poetic form, this is how the book described the exclamation mark. The stop denotes our sudden admiration of what we read or write or give relation, and is always called an exclamation. Much like other symbols, words, and breeds of dogs, the exclamation mark inevitably evolved. Along the way, it bore many names after being called a note of admiration, such as a streamer, a startler, and even a shriek mark, to better adapt to its changing sentiment. The mark started appearing in typewriters around the 1950s and 60s and became standard in the 70s. Nowadays, of course, there's virtually no keyboard on our computers, phones, and tablets that doesn't have an exclamation mark hovering above the one, or at the very least, a couple of taps away. In today's world, the exclamation mark has also seeped its way into math and computer programming, and it has become a staple in comic books and video games, oftentimes signifying an alert or warning. To conclude, the Latin yo probably carried both its meaning and definition into the symbol we know as this, and probably took hold of the hearts of writers in the 15th century while showing up in our grandparents' typewriters in the 60s and 70s, only to end up in our virtual touchscreen keyboards and become one of the most overused, overemphasized symbols in our current society, the exclamation mark, or point, whatever. Use it wisely or not at all, but make sure to like and share this video and subscribe for more interesting bits of language. Feel free to leave any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos you'd like to see.